Hey, what's going on, guys? Just wanted to catch up with you tonight before I tried to jump into some Madden and catch some Z's before work. But um, there's been a lot of comments definitely about the offensive performances that we've had so far, and not to debate that they've been poor for sure. I definitely think if anybody can see it, the New York Jets definitely do. We've been so offensively inept for so long that um, the slightest back to back, few plays of, negative yardage, 1, 2 yard gains, no gains even, not turning chains or not moving the chain, just to say, etc. We kind of go off the rails. With that said, it has been a very, very long time though. Even when we were going to the playoffs in those back to back years, 09 and 2010, um, the offense wasn't necessarily explosive, I would say. We definitely had some of our better games from, Sanchez, 2 touchdown performances, maybe 3 touchdown games sprinkled in there, but there'd always be some picks to, kind of follow that. They definitely kind of played the game manager role with them early. So even with that success, we haven't seen since, the Ryan Fitzpatrick or Fitzmagic seasons, I should say, where we have Braylon Edwards and Eric Decker, and we're putting up 1,000 yard dual receivers. So I think a lot of the disdain just comes from 10 years is a very long time to be kind of stuck in the same rut. Imagine $10 an hour, being like a decent pay for you, but 10 years later you're still making $10 an hour. It's probably a lot that's changed. So just kind of looking at the numbers and taking a look at what the performances have looked like so far. If we take a look at the quarterback position, we know Zach Wilson's the guy. I firmly still believe he's the guy, anyways. We should have known what we were signing up for. I think that's where I want to start things off with. We have rookies all over the place. The youngest team in the NFL, right? Um, Youngest team in the NFL. I don't think youngest coaching staff is the way to put it, but we definitely have the freshest class, if we want to say. Everybody's essentially a rookie. Robert Saleh, first year head coach. LaFleur, first time offensive coordinator. We have Matt Kavanaugh, the pass game specialist or assistant quarterbacks coach. I'm not sure what his title was anymore. But he's in there as the quarterback whisperer to kind of replace Greg Knapp. Um, we have Jeff Ulbrich that's come over from the Falcons, so we have some experience there. But then you sprinkle in the offensive line coaches or the wide receiver coaches, tight ends, etc. And you'll find a lot of novice there too. But taking a look at Zach Wilson, so he's put up 70 attempts over the first 2 games. I think there's a fair amount of pass plays. I think kind of sticking to like the 20 to 30 range might be the more realistic goal if you want to talk about trying to slow walk your quarterback into the NFL. But just the way the game flows, having to play catch up, things of that nature, you're bound to throw more. I think as long as we don't have like an Andrew Luck type of 600 plus passes a season situation, we'll be fine. But we're also taking into account we have a 17th game, so all the statistics are going to be slightly skewed a little bit more. But 70 attempts on the season, just a 55.7% completion percentage, 468 yards, and then we're looking at a 2 to 5 touchdown interception ratio. So he's by no means been magical in any kind of sense. I think the traits are still there. I think Robert Saleh kind of hit the nail on the head with what he was discussing during his last press conference after the Patriots game, where he was saying it's okay to be boring. And by that, it wasn't meant to be like, use all your check down options, be very vanilla, telegraph passes to players that are, automatically open, but won't be able to get any yards after catch opportunities. It's more so about being nuanced and when you want to take those risks. And Zach Wilson himself said as much during the preseason, during practices. We're trying to figure out, what he can get away with. I think that's the problem. And, they stressed it as well. Rookies all over the place. Doesn't matter what position you're going to be at. and Sheldon Rankins was talking about this on his press conference. You're going to want to press for the big plays, the highlight reels, the things that are going to make the crowd ooh and ah. And it looked great for, endorsements and, future contracts and things like that. But, there's leeway that a rookie has and doesn't have that, a veteran does. It's always two sides to the coin. I heard a little bit of chatter, but, there wasn't much of that was, realistically going to happen when Aaron Rodgers had that terrible week 1 performance. Week 2 comes around, back to the MVP ways. So we haven't seen, MVP caliber performances, which I think would be a bit beyond expectations. But we haven't necessarily seen that, Andrew Luck or, what's another rookie quarterback that had a pretty successful season. We haven't seen like an Andrew Luck or necessarily. It's been a while actually. Now that I think about it, since we've had maybe Justin Herbert. I guess more recently, it's kind of been a while since we had somebody that's really just kind of ooh and ah. This Russell Wilson, Justin Herbert, and Andrew Luck kind of come to mind. But it's going to happen. It's a work in progress. The other thing is we know what we signed up for when we brought Robert Saleh over, defensive-minded head coach, and the staff that he was bringing over was somebody that he would have confidence in, that not unlike the Rex Ryan and the Todd Bowles era where they just kind of handed the keys over to the offense while trying to play like the, overall game management specialist. Which, I mean, Rex Ryan was technically an enigma. He really just handed, the keys, bought the car and everything and said, you're responsible for this. I can get the defense together. But aside from that, we don't really have that situation here. I really think Robert Saleh, is probably in the offensive coach meeting rooms, which ironically, I haven't heard any. I haven't heard in any of the interviews or the press conferences where they've asked him, how involved he is. So I says, maybe that says a lot about what they know already or kind of what the expectation is. But still, I think Zach Wilson has a long way to go mentally, and I'm not referring into, getting through progressions, tracking his progress, things of that. I specifically mean just in terms of watching the game slow down for him. There's kind of a groove. It reminds me of the Soul movie, right? When they say you get into the zone, you just, everything essentially goes right, or you're able to kind of move things to the way that you see fit. And I think we see that from players like Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson just had a very crazy performance. Russell Wilson's probably the most consistent person that I've ever seen from game to game outside of, maybe Tom Brady. So it'll be a while before we get to that level. It'll be a while before the offense has a true identity. It'll be a while before we figure out what our strike and balance is between run pass. There's a lot of nuances that come to play. There's going to be players that come and go that added certain things that, were there one season and not there the other. But I think Zach Wilson will definitely get on track. Once we see that one wow game, then, I'm sure that's going to trigger the Jets fans to go super crazy. So I'm definitely waiting for that moment to come. But we definitely have some strong defenses coming up. Broncos are right around the corner for us. So we'll just take it a week at a time and see how it goes. But full faith and confidence in him still. Full faith and confidence in the coaching staff turning things around. Taking a look at the rushing game. It's been fairly balanced, actually. And I thought we might see the fourth running back be in rotation a little bit more. But I think they've only been carrying 3 running backs into the season on game days, considering that what is it? I think Ryan Griffin was trying to be used as the Trayvon Wesco. Never mind, that's what I'm thinking about. Trayvon Wesco is being used as the hybrid blocking tight end for like a fullback role. But Michael Carter, Ty Johnson, Tevin Coleman, 15, 16, and 14 attempts respectively. Coleman and Ty Johnson and Michael Carter tied for 65 yards apiece, and then Coleman has 48 yards. And we've seen our most effective run game last week, which was really awesome to see. It's also kind of nice to see that we're back with having multiple players over 4.3 yards per carry. Zach Wilson sprinkled a few decent runs in there as well, but I think the big thing is we're using the rotation very effectively. So we've seen when the running game and the offensive line are opening up the holes and doing things that they need to do, that the natural talent from some of these younger players are going to stand out. Ty Johnson had a really excellent season in the Gase era where it's hard to say anybody had any kind of productive season. And then Michael Carter, we know the traits that he had coming over. So really excited to continue to see him. And I guess, as I mentioned in a previous video, Michael Carter seems like he had the hot hand in practice then because Tevin Coleman had the sleight of hand week 1. We'll see if things change up. I know they spoke a little bit about Ty Johnson and how effective he was in the second game. So I think what we need to see now is, continuing to see the chains move on the ground when we can. I like the fact that we picked up a lot of chunk plays. But we need to have those conversions. The best thing I can say is we haven't had any fumbles from that specific position yet. So it'd be great to see, maybe a Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis type season, which he was kind of one of my underrated favorite running backs for a while, just because it didn't matter who he was going to go head to head with, how many people was tackling him, etc. He had that ball on lock. And then, when it finally happened and he fumbled, I think we've seen a few more that season instead of it being like a long trend again. But I think he went something like maybe, this might be a reach, but I want to say like 500 or 600 plus carries at one time without any kind of fumble. I think it was like 6 seasons into his career, maybe, but it was wild. Either way, it'd be great to see that. But the next step is definitely just continue to have those explosive plays for sure. And then we got to get in the end zone. We definitely got to get in the end zone. I miss the days where, we might have 15 touchdowns on the season. But same thing, much like with Zach Wilson, that team core is very young. Let's let the natural talent, show itself. And then as they get more comfortable hitting the holes, getting adjusted to the scheme, the speed of the defenses, some of these much larger men that they're going to have to do battle against in the trenches. And I'm sure we'll see some special things out of them. The receiving core is where all the surprises are for me. I seen a crazy stat this morning, and then I went and did some research and checked out, how the 2 games this season has looked so far for everybody. Who would have known that, we bring in Corey Davis, Denzel Mims, for all accounts, looked solid for his rookie year. Definitely big things expected as a second-round pick. We bring in Elijah Moore, super explosive. College tape is crazy. And he's dominating all types of, cornerbacks, linebackers, safeties, etc. We have Braxton Berrios, who was sneaky good. Jeff Smith, who had a lot of good plays. And then, tight end wise, who knows what we would have had there, right? But from a receiving standpoint, everybody talked about how deep the receiving department was, the type of players we brought in, how dynamic they can be, etc. And the player that stands out the most is Braxton Berrios. 18 targets. The next closest person would be Davis and Elijah with 12 apiece. But Braxton Berrios is the leading receiving catcher with 12 receptions on the season. He also has the most yardage as 124 yards. But no touchdowns. Those 2 belong to Corey Davis, so he's definitely trying to earn his number 1 role. But it's just crazy to think how much roster turnover we've had at that position, and it's a holdover. And one that's never been in the upper echelons of even, if we want to relegate him to just a slot receiver role. He hasn't been those upper echelon levels of, being considered like a top 5, top 10, maybe even top 15 player at his position. But he's definitely sneaky good. So it's great to see, but at the same time, it just lets you know where we're at in our growth as a team. Again, not a knock on him, but the chemistry is obviously there. Zach Wilson must feel very comfortable that he's able to key in on him and connect so much. But I definitely like to see Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, have a bit more chemistry, at least some more explosive plays. I think Elijah Moore hasn't had as many opportunities as he had in his college days for sure already, with being put in positions to, just catch the ball and try to get those yards after the catch. A lot of things have kind of been like out routes. A lot of the interceptions, or I shouldn't say a lot, but some of the interceptions from last week with the Patriots came from him trying to catch Elijah and right against the sideline, and they got underthrown or overthrown, misfired, etc. So I think that's something that we need to try to game plan for a lot better. It doesn't even have to necessarily be via screens, but if we can get some hitches in there or something, maybe some routes that overlap each other where he can get a little bit more separation because there's a chip block in there or whatever the case is going to be. Um, we'll see the player that a lot of people are expected that we draft and see right away. It's definitely been a bit underwhelming, but there's a lot of moving components there. So again, it's not as if the talent just evaporated overnight or anything, but there's definitely a lot of plays that are being left on the field, and I just don't think we're maximizing a lot of the physical traits that we're seeing from these players. Corey Davis being a big guy, catch radius pretty big, a la Denzel Mims. And there's that whole goat in the elephant in the room. Corey Davis, we seen the first game, but a lot of that was unscripted kind of plays that just broke down. And luckily, Zach Wilson and the Corey Davis connection was working well for us that day. Not so much week 2, but I think it really is just a matter of us being in positions. There's a lot of talk, again, in these interviews and these press conferences where the explanation for Mims and just kind of the wide receiver core as a whole in terms of who's getting playing time, we know who our top 3 are, and that's essentially Corey Davis, Braxton Berrios, and Elijah Moore. Keelan Cole is looked at as a 4, which is kind of surprising. I don't think anybody would have necessarily labeled him a 4. And I've seen a lot of variations of what the people expected the depth chart to be. And then Denzel Mims being the 5. And the explanation is pretty much that Keelan Cole is the gunner for us. So he plays a pretty important role there. And the number 5 spot at the wide receiver core has to be a special teams player. So with Denzel Mims not offering much special teams ability, but not fully mastering what they said the playbook in all aspects, the slot receiver role, the boundary receiver, or if we want to get into the schematics, the X, Y, and Z receiver spots. It appears like maybe he just doesn't have a full grasp. The argument has been, if you have a player that runs 4.3, that's 6'3", catch radius is ridiculous, and we've seen him make the actual plays on the field, why haven't we been able to find a reason to at least utilize that, since it's not like we're taking L's, but we're putting up 30 points a game. So I think there's definitely a little bit of weirdness from that. But I've heard the reasoning. I've heard Robert Saleh being very upfront about kind of what the expectation there has been. And they have my buy-in. So, I mean, to be honest, unless something really just comes across being weird, I'm not going to question it too much. I'm going to give them the full season to let this thing, we're 6 weeks into an installation of a whole new offensive and defensive scheme. Let's let things build. Let's see how the evolution of the team, continues to progress. We made progress. We had a running game week 2. The ball was spread out a little bit more, however you want to, play that out. It's not like Zach Wilson's keying in on people per se. It's just that we're playing our 3 main receivers pretty often. And then, Jeff Smith, Denzel Mims might get, sprinkled in there depending on who's active. And we'll see a little bit from Tyler Croft and Ryan Griffin from game to game. But I really think at this point, it's still Corey Davis or Elijah Moore that we can see the breakout from. If Braxton Berrios continues kind of what this trend for him is, where he continues being the most targeted, maybe we see something wild where, Corey Davis or Elijah Moore leads the team in touchdowns. Maybe 1 or 2 of them are the next, top. Maybe Corey Davis is the leading touchdown receiver. Elijah Moore gets us the most yardage, and Braxton Berrios could be our leading receiver. As crazy as that sounds, but I would say that's the potential that we're looking at right now. Keelan Cole, Jeff Smith, Denzel Mims it's just going to kind of depend on how injuries continue, and kind of how that playing time gets broken out. It's definitely more balanced in a running back room than it is in a wide receiver room right now. But again, the Denzel Mims thing is very perplexing, but I got full faith in them. If they're waiting to see that the mental piece is on par with where they want it, and then Denzel Mims has, a hell of a second half of the season, I'll take it. If Denzel Mims is, an afterthought, then I think in the video that I just put out, kind of talking about that whole situation, I think what Joe Douglas will do, that I mentioned in that video, will definitely come to fruition. So aside from that, the offensive line's been inconsistent, bad in both departments, or good in one, average in the other, poor in one, great in another. We'll see if there's a level of consistency. I will say better overall play for sure. George Fenn is definitely stepping up. Morgan Moses, Wiley Vet, I think we'll continue to see good things there. AVT, it's been a great pickup. I don't think too many fans, just because we're having a bad offensive performance, the offensive line always is going to be, kind of the main go-to, but not too many people watch, offensive line film, myself included. I just kind of rely on the highlights, and then I'll check things out from, the professionals that actually do it. But AVT is he's been a top 10 PFF offensive lineman so far. He's done well for himself coming out the gate. We expected the Beck and AVT tandem to be there, but overall, between those three, Govern, stepping up, we've seen some good things. I think his consistency for the offensive line is going to be the big thing. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are. I'm going to do another video just like this for the New York Jets defense. There's some interesting things going on there too in terms of the rookies, how they're performing, the cornerback room especially. So I'm going to be really excited to kind of dive into that once I can check out the stats, go back, watch a little bit of the highlights and tape. But let me know what you guys' thoughts are. Again, Braxton Berrios being a leading receiver is a little bit strange heading into the season. Zach Wilson hasn't given us a performance really that's kind of led people to believe this is definitely our franchise player. But in the same token, it's going to be work. But again, I appreciate you guys sticking with me, and I'll catch up with you again. Peace.